Hello everyone, today is 15th of January. Now it's about 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Later on today, towards the evening, I will publish second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages, and if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, more understanding of how we from Russia view some main or major developments in this world, or simply if you just like my work and want to support in long term, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty, where I have a lot of additional content, extra content on a regular basis. Links to my Patreon and Boosty are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And just in case you are interested, I will tell you that a monthly subscription on my Patreon starts from 5 USD. And it is somewhat similar on a Boosty. Also, it always depends on exchange rate. But anyways, that's been said, let's go through some news now, and of course I will start with the breaking news for this moment, which is that Russian armed forces have launched yet another large-scale long-range missile and drone strikes on military and logistics infrastructure of the Kiev regime. Air raid alert is all around Kiev-controlled territory right now, and a couple of minutes ago I shared on my Telegram and the Twitter X page latest information. Missiles are on the way, by the way, at this point, even though in Ivano-Frankovsk and some other areas missiles already reached destination and there were heavy explosions according to some reports. Majority of missiles and drones still are in the air. And let's go through some details of what is known for this moment. So combined missile strike on targets in so-called Ukraine is on the way right now. Russian aerospace forces, missile groups in the airspace of, I wrote 404, which is error mark. That's what I call this so-called Ukraine, by the way. It is error, historical error. Anyways, according to local monitoring services, at the moment they are being recorded in several regions. Missiles have been recorded in several regions at once. A group of missiles is recorded in direction of Nikolaev region. A group of KH or Ha-101 missiles are entering aerospace of Kiev-controlled territory in the Sumy region. Missiles also spotted in Kirovograd region. Also, missiles have been spotted in Sumy area, Kryvyi Rog, Mirnograd, Kiev region, Cherkasy area, Western Ukraine, by the way, in Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia regions, Khmelnytsky region, Lvov region, Ivano-Frankovsk, and as I already said, there was powerful explosions in Ivano-Frankovsk already. So, during the, let me check some other Telegram channels. We have on DD Geopolitics this report that there was explosions in Ivano-Frankovsk, in Poltava, Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Kirovograd, Kharkov, Sumy regions. There are emergency power outages. And as I said, this missile attack has just begun, so I guess towards the end of this update, more information will be available, and I will check once again some channels that are reporting on this strike. Okay, that's being said, dear friends, let's go through some other news. One may ask, is this Russian missile strike is retaliation for yesterday's large-scale drone and missile strike that Kyiv regime conducted on Russian territory? And well, it is, one may argue that yes, it can be seen as a retaliation, although in my personal opinion, such operations combined long-range, large-scale missile and drone strikes are prepared for quite a while, right? To make sure that every drone, every missile has its target. And therefore, me personally, I'm not considering this Russian long-range missile strikes as a retaliation. It's just a pre-planned operation. It just happened that it was exactly yesterday that Kyiv regime launched its own long-range. Kyiv regime, with the assistance of NATO, launched its own large-scale missile and drone attack on Russian Federation, and we have some information on that attack also. Yesterday, Defense Ministry, towards the late afternoon, reported to public that overall 180 Ukrainian drones were intercepted by Russian air defense systems, and 146 of them outside of the zone of special military operation, which means deep inside the Russian territory. Also, Russian Defense Ministry confirmed information that Kyiv regime once again used, obviously with the assistance of NATO member states, US-made ATACMS missiles and British-made Storm Shadow missiles to conduct these long-range strikes deep into Russia. These missiles were used for strike towards Bryansk region, and according to Defense Ministry, 6 Storm Shadows were launched, 6 ATACMS missiles, and there are simultaneously also 31 drones towards Bryansk region, and all of these aerial targets were destroyed by Russian air defense system. At least that's what Defense Ministry stated. Yesterday I reported about this long-range strike in the first update, also in the second update, this long-range missile and drone strikes that Kyiv regime conducted. Unfortunately, in certain areas, some drones managed to cause some damage. But yet again, even though Russian air defense system is best in the world, undoubtedly, hardly anyone doubts that, even best air defense system in the world cannot neutralize all aerial targets always 100% at the time. It's just not happening, and impossible even, I will say. So therefore, it is not that surprising that some of the drones and even some of the missiles time to time are managing to bypass air defense systems or get through it and to hit targets. Although usually, you all know, Russian Defense Ministry reports that it's a fragments of intercepted drones and missiles that are causing some damage on the ground. But whatever the case, unfortunately, during the yesterday's strike, certain enterprises in several Russian cities were damaged, and videos are circulating on the internet about fires there. In one of their cities in Saratov region, I believe, emergency situation was even declared there because of the consequences of yesterday's strike. And today Russia is conducting long-range strikes, and I guess later on, maybe even during this update, more information will become available about consequences of this Russian attack. It is quite easy to predict that most likely Russian missiles and drones will target military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime and their potentially energo infrastructure, also, which is crucial for Kyiv regime's militaries to move around their equipment and manpower through railways. But anyways, let's continue with some more news. Now, TASS news agency is reporting that, and by the way, on topic of Russian retaliation, I said yesterday and in some previous updates, my understanding of the situation. in regards to these retaliatory strikes. I think Russia will continue to exercise restraint at least for another 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a little longer, to make sure that, you know, once Trump is in office, he had enough time to influence policies of the collective West or US itself in regard to this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. And if after 3-4 weeks, once Trump is in office, nothing will change on the ground, nothing will change in the policies of the US, if the regime continues this long-range drone and missile strikes on Russian Federation, and we will understand that flight path targeting data for these missiles and drones are provided by US mainly, right? US militaries and intelligence services, and UK is also involved. So, you know, once Trump is in office, you know, when 3-4 week passes and nothing will change in US's behavior, if long-range strikes continues, then obviously Moscow will have no more doubts that Trump's administration will continue this escalatory ladder, on this escalatory ladder against Russia. And at that point, when this final understanding of the situation settles in the Russian leadership, when they have no doubts whatsoever that Washington is not intended to de-escalate anything, just statements, but not real steps, then we will see Russian real retaliatory strikes, real ones. And it's going to be something that world has never seen before. That is my understanding. At that point, we will see a level of escalation between West and Russia that would be clearly unprecedented. World will end up one step away from full-scale nuclear exchange between major nuclear superpowers. And once all of us will end up on that point, including Western ruling class, by the way, that is quite clearly not suicidal. At that point, they will order their puppets in the governments of the collective West, including US, to start de-escalating, because they want to leave. That's what is going to happen, by the way. So therefore, me personally expect to, you know, I expect that there will be large scale escalation in about 1-2 months time between West and Russia. And after that peak of escalation, real de-escalation will begin, because all sides, everybody will realize that any further escalation will cause end of everything, and I guess that will be enough to bring Western ruling class to their senses. So that's how I see the picture. Although we will find out, isn't it? We will find out. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated settlements of Niskuchna and Terny, and this information was confirmed by Defense Ministry. About Niskuchna, about progress of the Russian armed forces in Niskuchna area, I reported in previous updates, and this information not comes as a surprise, but some members of our community may be a little surprised that Terny is also now liberated by Russian forces. Although a couple of weeks ago, I reported about progress of the Russian armed forces in Terny area also, and I remember during that report I mentioned that some 30 to 50%, significant part of the settlement was already under Russian control, and it is fully liberated now. And this is Terny settlement, by the way, on left bank of the Zhiribets river. That's a river that goes in this area, and some water reservoirs. And this is a big deal, by the way. This is a big deal. Russian forces were approaching Terny from southern, from eastern sides, At one point, some months or 2 months ago, Russian troops were in just a couple of kilometers away from eastern side, from Terni. But eventually what happened is that Russian troops achieved breakthrough on the northern side, from north. And in many areas, Russian troops even crossed the Zhiribets River and established control over the settlements on the right bank of the Zhiribets River. And it has become clear at that point that Terni will become under Russian control in a relatively short time. And Russian troops entered the settlement from northern side. And right now, operations are in Yampolovka area. And I guess it is only a matter of few days at this point, and most likely Yampolovka will be also under full Russian control. Then most likely Russian troops will push towards Kolodezi settlement, Belogorovka settlement, and Mirnaya settlement on the right bank of the Zhiribets River. Same time, obviously Russian troops are conducting operations in Atarskoe and Zarechne directions with quite significant progress. And this is southern flank of Kupiansk sector of the front line. Also, dear friends, reports are coming in that Russian armed forces established full control over the Zelyone settlement in Pokrovsk sector of the front line. And if you take a look at the map, well, Russian troops already are operating in on outskirts of Pokrovsk and the Mirnograd agglomeration. I guess it is a matter of a couple of weeks at this point, and we will see a final push to liberate Pokrovsk and Mirnograd also. Let's continue with more news. And TASS news agency is reporting about the progress of the Russian armed forces in Chisov Yar also. And as I reported a couple of days ago, Russian troops established full control of the industrial part of the Chisov Yar, and are now basically conducting clearing operation in rest of the areas in the south and most northern parts of Chisov Yar to basically neutralize whatever Kiev regime's forces are trapped there. And in a couple of days time I expect a statement from Russian Defense Ministry about liberation of Chisov Yar also. And this information here confirms Russian progress in industrial zone. So Russian forces have ousted the Ukrainian military from Chisov Yar's refractory plant in Donetsk People's Republic, and now are focused on clearing operation. Some multi-store buildings have been cleared in nearby areas, in residential areas. This was announced by advisor to the head of DPR, Igor Kimakovsky, during his interview with the Channel 1 TV station. So significant progress of the Russian armed forces in Chisov Yar area also, and I guess it is only a matter of time. Let me first find Chisov Yar. This is, by the way, I become sort of not an expert in geography of this so-called Ukraine, but I become quite good in geography of this former Soviet Republic, as many of you also, I guess, because we're constantly monitoring maps and stuff. So yes, this is Chisov Yar, dear friends, and the city is almost completely under Russian control. Couple of days, and quite possibly towards the end of this week, we will receive information that Chisov Yar is fully liberated, and then obviously main hotspot on line of contact on the DPR sector is going to be Konstantinovka. But reports are coming in that Russian troops probably will liberate Konstantinovka in much shorter time because Kiev regime's forces are exhausted in this direction. Whatever Kiev regime had in reserves in this area was directed into Chisov Yar, but it did not help them to maintain control over their city. And once Russian troops are in full control of Chisov Yar, then I guess experts are correct, and Russian troops will not really receive tough resistance from Kiev regime's forces, depleted Kiev regime's forces, while they will move towards Konstantinovka itself. Although, of course, it will take some time anyways, right? Let's continue with some more news, but progress of the Russian armed forces definitely quite impressive all along the front line, especially in the DPR, and also in area of counter-terrorist operation, by the way, where this salient, this temporarily occupied part of this borderline area of the Kursk region is shrinking on daily basis, and the Kiev regime lost more than 51,000 military personnel in that Kursk area since the beginning of invasion. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that Zelensky wants more weapons before lowering conscription age. So, as I predicted, by the way, Kiev is not just considering, but Kiev is agree to start forcefully mobilizing teenagers from 18 and 19 and up to all of them, basically, from 18 years and higher. So Kiev could consider further lowering the conscription age, but only after the country receives sufficient military equipment from its international supporters. Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has signaled during a meeting with the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius on Tuesday, and Pistorius was in Kiev, by the way. I reported about it yesterday on my Telegram and Twitter X pages, I believe. So during a visit of Boris Pistorius, Zelensky emphasized that the country's armed forces face acute shortages of the essential equipment, including armored vehicles and artillery, rather than personnel. According to Zelensky, ensuring that all soldiers are adequately equipped must take a priority before expanding their conscription base. As reported by Ukrainian media, we have more than 100 brigades on the battlefield, and each of them needs to be fully staffed every day, but we are constantly facing shortages, especially in armored vehicles, artillery, and other necessary equipment, he said, highlighting that most units are struggling due to constant equipment failures and maintenance issues. Therefore, when we talk about increasing the number of troops, we must first address the issue of adequate supplies. Our partners have all these requests, he told the journalists. I guess this is all talk, by the way. Biden's administration is very clear that they are openly demanding the regime to start sacrificing teenagers also for geopolitical agenda of the West, and to start forcefully mobilize younger people from 18 and higher. And unfortunately, future national security advisor of Trump, during the recent interview with ABC, that was, I believe, also stated that Kiev regime should start mobilizing younger people. And I guess that's exactly what is going to happen. I don't think Zelensky is an independent player, and he can refuse to obey orders from Washington. And all these talks about weapons needed first, and it just talk that don't really influences anything. Young people in Ukraine, if they are monitoring developments, they should try and escape Kiev-controlled territory if they can, or they should hide somewhere, because they definitely have no obligation before these Nazis and the terrorists that are in charge in Kiev, and they definitely have no obligation before Western ruling class to fight and die for them or their sick geopolitical agenda, right? Let's continue. And dear friends, when it comes to this so-called Ukraine, or fate of this so-called Ukraine, yesterday, top advisor of the Russian president, Nikolai Patrushev, made a quite interesting statement that he wouldn't be surprised if Ukraine will cease to exist as a state in 2025. let's translate at least this sentence here. So, assistant to the president of Russian Federation, Nikolai Patrushev, does not rule out that in 2025 Ukraine will cease to exist as a state. And well, what can I say, dear friends? I was saying this I mean, since forever. It seems like you know my take on fate of Ukraine. I was quite clear that in my reading of the big picture, most likely the so-called Ukraine will undergo full-scale disintegration, and after this conflict will end, there will be no more Ukraine on a political map, or maybe just a little part of it, Kiev and surrounding few regions. Maybe, I mean, I will always leaving some 1 or 2% for that Kiev and surrounding few regions will maintain quasi-statehood, a landlocked quasi-statehood on the political map, although only if local government will be free of Western influence, let's say this way, right? Rest of the territory most likely will be divided between West and Russia. Western Ukraine will end up under control of NATO. Rest of the Ukraine under direct or indirect control of Russia. That's how it's going to be. And basically, Patrushev, at least indirectly, confirmed my reading of the big picture, because it seems like senior officials here in Russia definitely are considering at least a possibility that after this conflict will end, there will be no more Ukraine on the political map, or maximum this little quasi-state, Kiev and surrounding few regions, and that's about it. Rest will be divided. And that's the fate of Ukraine, by the way. Western Ukraine will eventually be reclaimed by Poland, Hungary, and Romania. And the rest of the Ukraine, rest of this so-called Ukraine will join where it belongs. It is a historical Russian territory, and there should be part of Russia, obviously. Kiev also, by the way. I hope Kiev will also come back to Mother Russia, but we have to be realistic. I mean, there is still this 1-2% of possibility that Kiev and surrounding few regions will stay on the political map as a quasi-state, landlocked quasi-state, although completely free of Western influence. It will be in Russian sphere of influence, let's say that way. Let's continue. RT is reporting that, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov yesterday had a big press conference, and he was summarizing 2024 during that press conference, and he made quite a few interesting statements. For example, he said that Russia is ready to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine, although let's go through some details here. Moscow is ready to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has announced. Speaking at the press conference on Tuesday, Lavrov emphasized, however, that any talks must take place within a broader Eurasian framework in order to address larger geopolitical issues. And then, quote, "We are ready to discuss security guarantees for the country that is now called Ukraine." Quite a specific wording here, isn't it? But we are ready to discuss security guarantees for the country that is now called Ukraine and may not called Ukraine tomorrow. Assumption comes from this statement, isn't it? But anyways, let's continue. And we are ready to discuss security guarantees for the country that is now called Ukraine and the parts of that country which have not yet determined their status. Unlike Crimea, Donbass, and Novorossiya, Lavrov stated during the briefing. So this is the position of Russia, by the way, and this statement of Lavrov perfectly well coincides with what I just said, with my reading of the big picture, that Ukraine will eventually undergo full-scale disintegration and most likely will cease to exist as a state on the political map, or maybe just Kiev and surrounding few areas will maintain statehood, quasi-statehood, under Russian, in Russian zone of influence. And well, I assume that's exactly what Lavrov also meant, because he's directly saying that Russia is ready to talk about security guarantees for the country that is now called Ukraine, but not necessarily this territory will be called Ukraine tomorrow, especially when it comes to parts of this country that have not yet determined their status, which means that they should determine their status and will determine their status in the future, right? And of course, we are talking about Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, and few more regions, by the way, Sumy, Chernigov, potentially a few others, right? And that means that once these regions will, determine their status, and also western parts of Ukraine, western regions, which eventually, joins Poland, or I believe Hungary and Romania, it might happen that Turkey and surrounding areas will, it depends what kind of negotiations, what kind of agreements will be reached by Moscow and Washington, really, isn't it? So if Moscow and Washington decides that, okay, let's maintain statehood for Ukraine, and if that is going to be decision, then Kiev and surrounding few regions will stay on the political map as a state, quasi-state, in a zone of Russian influence. But if such decision is not being reached, then I guess entire territory of this so-called Ukraine, with the exception of western regions, will join Russia eventually. But anyways, will be under direct or indirect control of Moscow. That's for sure, right? And Russian leaders, by the way, including foreign minister, they are quite direct about all this stuff. They are just more diplomatic. I mean, Lavrov is a diplomat, and he is talking about stuff in diplomatic ways. I'm not a diplomat. I'm a citizen journalist, and I can use whatever words I want, so I can be more direct, right? I'm not playing no diplomatic games, right? So interesting, by the way. Meanwhile, we have this report on RIA Novosti that NATO plans to radically increase its presence in the Baltics. And yesterday, during the second update on my Patreon and Woosty pages, I mentioned and ironized on this news that NATO member states that are on the Baltics already have entire their fleets there, right? Entire their military presence there. What else they gonna do? They're gonna ask London to send last 2 or 3 warships that they have into the Baltics, or they're gonna ask Washington to send their aircraft carrier in this sea, into the Baltics. That aircraft carrier will be sitting duck, by the way. I mean, you cannot do that, right? But what they gonna do? I mean, and this statement came from a prime minister of Poland, by the way, Donald Tusk. I guess this individual is just too stupid, really, just too stupid to understand what he's talking about. He was probably trying to act tough that we're gonna increase our presence in Baltics and we're gonna do this and that, and people, probably laughed at him because what the hell are you talking about? You only cost you have is in Baltics, only fleet you have is in Baltics, right? Same goes for Germany, same goes for this Chihuahuas, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and the rest is the same, right? Entire your fleet is there already. what you are talking about. But I mean, these guys are going crazy, by the way. They are crazy anyways. So NATO has decided to radically increase its military presence in the Baltic Sea. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk told reporters after the summit of the North Atlantic Alliance countries in the Baltic region. The growing Russian aggression, I mean, just look at it. This is quote, by the way. What Russian aggression? When Russia targeted NATO member state? When? It never happened, right? It just never happened. So what this stupid individual is talking about? But anyways, let's go through this quote. So growing Russian aggression tell us to make decisions that are unprecedented in some sense. In this case, we are talking about radically strengthening NATO presence in the Baltic Sea. He said, okay, go ahead and do it. You already have all your military assets in the Baltics when it comes to Navy, right? So this is Poland, by the way. This is the only cost Poland has. It's a Baltics, right? Germany's fleet is in Baltics also, right? Same goes for this Chihuahua, Litva, Latvia, Estonia. Same goes for Finland. Same goes for Sweden, right? What are they talking about? But I tell you, dear friends, I tell you what might be behind these crazy statements about unexisted Russian aggression and stuff. Recently, all of you probably noticed that every other week, allegedly some undersea cable being snapped in the Baltics, right? And NATO West is blaming Russian and Chinese vessels for that. Yesterday was another report about damage of another undersea cable that connects Sweden with some other countries, and I find these developments quite dodgy, quite strange, because for years and years, I mean for decades actually, nothing was happening to these cables, and now every other week some report about yet another undersea cable being damaged. Really? I mean, if Russia wants to take out these communications, Russia can do it, like easy, right? Easy. And there will be no more undersea cables there left. Russia can take it out entirely in a single day. So all these talks that Russia is doing this, it's BS, it's total nonsense, right? Total nonsense. So therefore, if cables were really damaged, my understanding is that this is sabotage conducted by NATO secret services, right? And this new narrative, that cables are unsecure, will be used by NATO or by the West to make life difficult for commercial navy of Russia, commercial navy of China, commercial navy of India, and every other country that continues to work with Russia. That's what is going on, by the way. And the statement of this stupid Polish prime minister may be connected with these plans that collective West probably has, that they will use this false narrative of some damaged cables, this false flag basically. They will use it to kind of transform a Baltic Sea into NATO's internal lake, which is not going to happen, by the way, which is not going to happen. This is a sea, and Russia and every other country in this world has every right to navigate through this sea according to all the agreements that are in place for now. And if Western ruling class will start breaking the rules in this regard, I guess Western commercial vessels gonna end up in a situation for which they really are not ready, because they might find out that they are not welcomed anywhere in this world, right? So that's what is going on, by the way. This is all false flag operation, all this narrative about cables being snapped, and West is using this to basically harass commercial vessels, commercial navies of countries that are cooperating with Russia and Russia itself, although it is a very risky game because at one point, I said, by the way, at one point Russia will start retaliating for real, and I really don't think Western world is ready for that, because it is not. You know, that's all it is. It would be great if majority of societies in the West start waking up before Western ruling class push this war towards that next level of escalation, but they're not gonna wake up, man. No. They're not gonna listen to their fellow citizens that are more informed and know better. They're not gonna listen to them. They're not gonna listen to nobody. You know, they are absolutely zombified by the propaganda. That's what it is. And until they will face directly certain consequences of their criminal actions of their elites, governments, and so on, they don't even think about opening the eyes. That's what it is. Anyways, let's continue. And by the way, Western ruling class is I mean, it is what it is, man. These are despicable individuals, right? Western ruling class, Western so-called elites, absolutely despicable individuals, majority, very cheap in terms of intellect, in terms of principles, or in terms of soul, by the way. They don't even have soul. They sold their soul, by the way. These dirty freaking animals, man. And look at this news. Biden is in a last-ditch bid to seize Russian funds, according to CNN. So officials in Washington are trying to convince the EU to confiscate Russian assets frozen in the bloc before US President Joe Biden leaves office in 2 weeks, according to CNN. The US and its allies have frozen some 300 billion of sovereign Russian assets held in their Brussels-based Euroclear since their escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. The EU has been reluctant to seize their funds outright, as senior officials reportedly fear global reputational damage arising from full asset seizure, and that Russian reprisal could wreck the bloc's economy. Moscow has denounced the blocking of its sovereign funds as absolutely illegal, and said any attempt to confiscate them would be outright theft. In the case, Western assets inside Russia, valued at more than 300 billion US dollars, would be targeted in retaliation. Russian Finance Minister Anton Siluanov has warned the White House has repeatedly made one last effort to seize the money before President-elect Donald Trump takes office on January 20, according to CNN on Monday, citing two anonymous senior officials. The US wants the EU to move their money to a special escrow account from which it could be released if Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations are successful. If you want your money back, you are going to have to come talk. One of their officials told the CNN. Biden officials have claimed that Trump's nominees are generally supportive of their strategy, seeing the frozen funds as a possible leverage over Moscow. Why am I not surprised, by the way? That's why I'm saying, I mean, Trump's administration not gonna de-escalate nothing, by the way. They are not about the escalation. They are all about escalation, right? And not just against Russia, because when it comes to Russia, once we will reach a peak of escalation, and it will happen in the next couple of months, then eventually situation will de-escalate, because Western ruling class is not suicidal and they don't want to die. I mean, That's how simple things going to be for them at that point. Because if they will escalate any further, they will die. And I don't think they want that. So that's why the escalation will happen. Not because they become good people suddenly or something. No, out of fear, they will start de-escalating. But before that, unfortunately, we will see unprecedented scale of escalation, and that will happen, in my understanding, in next couple of months. But when it comes to the rest of the world, by the way, Trump's administration is, of course, about escalation with Iran, with China, with India, with everybody that demonstrates any level of independence. You know, that's what it is. And yes, I mean, you know my take on this frozen Russian assets, and I guess vast majority of people here in Russia are on the same page that Western ruling class will steal this money. Russia will never receive this money ever, you know. So we should forget about it. That's it. This money is stolen, right? And the Western ruling class is dancing around it or playing around it or, you know, screaming around it. And eventually Western ruling class will steal this money, right? It's only a matter of time. And they will come up with some justifications, by the way. They never have any issues to justify anything, right? So that's the face of the Western ruling class. I mean, dirty freaking animals, man. And before I continue, dear friends, before I continue, let me advertise this project a little bit. And well, if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you find it informative, useful, interesting, or maybe entertaining time to time, at least, please consider to support this project, especially if you think I deserve to exist in this field of news and political commentary. If I bring something positive and useful to the table, right? You can support if you want to through PayPal platform, Boosty platform, crypto, and also by subscribing to my Patreon page, where I have quite a lot of on Patreon and Boosty pages also, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. And I really hope more and more members of our community at least will consider to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. Patreon or Boosty, by the way, or both if you can afford that. Because these platforms, by the way, Patreon and Boosty, allow me to understand what kind of funds I have for next month. And you know, it makes it a little bit easier to operate. So hopefully our communities on Patreon and Boosty will grow. Links, as I said, are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. Let's continue with some more news now. And how long is this update? It's already 48 minutes. Wow. Couple of more news, dear friends. So Interfax and many other media outlets here in Russia and worldwide are reporting that Israel and Hamas have reached their initial principal agreement on the escalation in Qatar, I believe, where negotiations were taking place. And according to reports, today or tomorrow, official announcement about agreement between the sides may be made. Previously, we had so many talks about some preliminary agreements being reached by sides that it is difficult to believe that this time all these developments are really about the escalation. But let's hope we will see through the escalation in the Gaza Strip, in Palestine, and people finally be able to at least live without fear that some bomb gonna strike them or missile at any time, right? Of course, Gaza Strip is decimated as a result of this conflict, and billions and billions and billions of investments need to be made to rebuild the area. So many casualties. But yet again, I mean, unfortunately, I'm a bit skeptical that Netanyahu and his government is serious about de-escalating, because I said from the beginning of this conflict that most likely Netanyahu and his inner circle planning to force Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip and then claim entire territory and integrate that territory, Gaza Strip, into Israel. And I think nothing has changed in attitude of Netanyahu and his inner circle, especially now, by the way, when it's 5 days away when Trump will become president of US, and Trump and his inner circle, just take a look at the people that he chose, by the way. They are all Zionists, right? All of them, by the way. And so why would Netanyahu de-escalate now? So this is just the games, by the way. This is just some games, I'm afraid. This is just a game on part of Netanyahu. Once Trump is in office, most likely Israeli government will start escalating again, not just in the Gaza Strip, but also in the West Bank. And eventually, I'm afraid locals will be forced out of these regions completely. In case of Gaza Strip, into Egypt; in case of Jordan, in case of West Bank, into Jordan, into Syria maybe, or Lebanon. But that's what Netanyahu and his government wants, and they might even they might even renew war with Lebanon in attempt to occupy southern parts of that country too, and to force locals out of the region. So I'm afraid it is only large-scale escalation ahead of this region in years to come. That's how I read the big picture, at least. I hope I am wrong, but I don't really see real indicators that will tell me that the escalation is about to begin. Time will tell. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that according to head of foreign ministry of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, comprehensive agreement between Russia and Iran about strategic partnership does not include military cooperation in it. So the comprehensive strategic partnership agreement between Moscow and Tehran is aimed at developing all aspects of bilateral relations, including defense cooperation, but does not involve the formation of the military alliance. This was stated by the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, Abbas Araghchi. And well, I was a bit surprised to see this news because in my understanding, best security guarantee for Iran at this point would be if sides, Moscow and Tehran, achieved agreement like Moscow has with Pyongyang now about bilateral military assistance in case of foreign aggression. And the foreign minister of Iran is saying that this agreement includes military cooperation also, but not the creation of the alliance. Who knows what he meant under the alliance, by the way. Maybe this agreement will have in it also point of bilateral protection, and maybe Abbas Araghchi don't see that as a being a demonstration of being in alliance or something. I don't know. Very strange statement, by the way. Very strange statement, because I believe if something similar was signed between Moscow and Tehran, as it was done between Moscow and Pyongyang, that will significantly increase regional security in the Middle East, especially in the Persian Gulf area. But I mean, let's see. On 17th of January, President of Iran, Pezeshkian, will be in Moscow, and this agreement will be signed. And maybe at that point we will learn some more, because I find this statement of Foreign Minister of Iran somewhat confusing. It is in Iran's and Middle East's best interests to sign an agreement with Russia on bilateral military assistance in case of foreign aggression, because that might deter certain forces, hostile forces in this world, from attacking Iran. And so I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on there, but that's what Abbas is saying, Abbas Araghchi, Foreign Minister of Iran, that there will be no military alliance between Moscow and Iran. Okay, I mean, Russia don't really need Iran's military help if any large-scale war begins, by the way. If Russia is engaged in a full-scale war with most hostile states or another nuclear superpower, that will be end of everything, right? That outcome of that war will be decided in a nuclear exchange, which will decimate humanity as a whole on this planet, right? So therefore, Russia don't really need any assistance from anybody in case of really large-scale or full-scale war between, let's say, Russia and states that are demonstrating hostility. First of all, US, NATO, basically. But Iran, on the other hand, would definitely be in a safer place. But I don't know. If they don't want it, then okay. I mean, okay. Meanwhile, by the way, I just mentioned Korea, although North Korea, but in South Korea, some interesting developments are taking place. South Korean security services finally arrested their former president, who basically didn't acknowledge his legitimacy of investigation and so on. But he basically surrendered to security services to avoid bloodshed. That Yoon Suk Yeol, individual that recently declared, while he was president, declared martial law and tried to conduct coup d'etat, basically, but failed, right? And he will be prosecuted now for crimes that he committed against people there. And he was arrested, which is, I mean, good news, by the way, because certain military forces actually start protecting him, and they didn't allow police to arrest him during the first attempt. And now some 1,000 police officers were deployed, by the way, to the scenery, and they were very serious that they're gonna arrest this person anyways, whatever the case. And it is good that this Yoon Suk Yeol surrendered, and that allow militaries and their police to avoid their confrontation between each other and the bloodshed. But it is crazy, man. I mean, this so-called president was ousted, right, impeached by parliament, and I find it strange that military units start defending him against and position themselves against law enforcement officers. I mean, what the hell, man? This military should be prosecuted also, all of them. They are traitors, by the way. In any country, these people will be treated as traitors because you are military. You don't get to choose, you know, who you support or what. You are in military, so you obey orders, right? Lawful orders. And if you don't, then that is that is a crime that militaries are very strict on. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I didn't expect South Korea to be this fragile, man. Really. And I was thinking South Korean militaries are a little bit more professional, but they are actually not. You know. Anyways, I don't really care, by the way, about South Korea. Let's be clear on that. I don't have any hard feelings towards South Korea. Any negative feelings? No. But I don't invested in South Korea also in any way, shape, or form. But it is quite strange. It is quite strange that this highly developed country, by the way, highly developed country economically, technologically, and so on, is this fragile in terms of politics, in terms of political system, and also in terms of militaries. I mean, this is nonsense, man. Entire military formations refuse to obey orders and start protecting criminal. What the hell? All of them should be prosecuted, man. No doubts about that, because that is a bad example for rest of the army. They have to be prosecuted. RIA Novosti is reporting that Armenia, meanwhile, signed an agreement with the US about creation of some committee that will work on strategical partnership between the two countries. And also, Armenia is beginning to negotiate with the US on topic of partnership in the nuclear energy field, which is interesting, by the way. There is nuclear power station in Armenia that is built by Russia and still until now operates with Russian help, right? With Russian assistance. I guess Washington is not happy with that. Washington wants Armenia to cut her every tie, every possible existing tie with Russia, including in terms of energy. And they are pushing now their puppets in Armenian government, like Pashinyan and the rest of their schizophrenics, to go ahead with this nonsense that they're gonna cooperate now with US in terms of nuclear energy. Okay, man. I mean, these are crazies, man. I cannot comment seriously on these shizics, man. I mean, psychos, really psychos, man. What the hell? What the hell? What happened to Armenia, man? I don't know. But yet again, as I said always, by the way, it's if people of Armenia want to go on that path and cut all their ties with Russia and become fully dependent on US, okay. I mean, good luck, what I can say, but that's too dangerous, man. Just too dangerous. What are they doing, man? I don't know. Anyways, RIA Novosti is reporting that according to Bloomberg, EU is working now on 16th package of sanctions on Russia, and in this package they will once again focus on Russian SPG, and also they want to ban imports of Russian aluminium, which means, by the way, that these psychopaths in charge of EU not even hiding that they want to destroy European economy, especially European manufacturing capabilities, because where Russian aluminium goes, by the way, in which sectors? In manufacturing, right? From cars and to, I mean, there's everything, by the way. Windows, doors, I don't know. Generators. Aluminium is used, I mean, in so many products, isn't it? And they want to introduce some sanctions on Russian aluminium, which will further devastate industries, right in Europe. And I really struggle, dear friends, to understand when people in Europe, or when people in the West in general, majority, don't wake up, is this that difficult to understand that these actions are harming EU? By the way, Russia will find where to sell its aluminium, right? Russia will find a way where to sell its LNG, its aluminium, its whatever, right? As it happened until now. And eventually, most likely, this aluminium, very same aluminium and LNG and the rest of it will end up on the European market, but overpriced, because the third and fourth and fifth parties will also want to make profits, right? And by reselling these Russian goods, they will make this product so expensive for European businesses that, I mean, process of the industrialization will accelerate on unprecedented scale. What is wrong with these idiots, man, that are in Brussels, in charge of EU, or the people that are in charge of EU member states, man? Do they really don't understand that they are destroying their own economies and eventually social fabric that is already stretched, I will say, beyond limits? I don't know. You tell me, dear friends, what you think. But this is, I don't know, man. This is crazy. They want to impose additional sanctions on Russian aluminium, LNG, and the rest of it. I mean, at this point, by the way, no one really cares here in Russia about these sanctions. It's already 40,000 plus sanctions, and there are a few thousand more, few thousand less. I mean, who cares really, right? But these sanctions actually are destroying economies, especially in Europe. And their governments there seems like don't care. They don't care, man. They are blind with this hatred of Russia. They are blind with their sick ideology, and they are not stopping. They are willing to destroy their own countries, their own societies, their own economies, but they will not stop to try to harm Russia in any way possible. Psychos, man, psychos. And I will end this update, dear friends, on this news from RT that Lavrov, foreign minister of Russian Federation, blamed US for Turk Stream attack that took place a couple of days ago, when Kiev regime launched a number of drones to strike a compressor station on the Turk Stream, for the Turk Stream. So the US instructed Ukraine to target Turk Stream gas pipeline after sabotaging the Nord Stream subsea connectors in 2022. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has claimed, so by the way, Russian Foreign Minister is openly blaming US for sabotaging Nord Stream, and Russian Foreign Minister is openly blaming US, that it is US that instructed Ukraine to try now and sabotage Turk Stream pipeline. On Monday, the defense ministry in Moscow said that Kiev had launched an unsuccessful attack with the 9 kamikaze drones on a gas compressor station near the village of Gaikodzor in Russia's Krasnodar region. The site is crucial for the operations of the Turk Stream pipeline, which delivers Russian natural gas to Turkey and several European nations via the Black Sea. During a press conference on Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov suggested that the United States may have been involved in an attempt to sabotage a gas facility. Of course, US was involved. Of course. I have a firm, because after all, it is US, that the US militaries that are providing targeting data and flight paths for long-range weapon systems of the Kiev regime, including drones, by the way, right? So, of course, Washington knew about it, and they authorized that strike. There is no other way, right? Then quote, by the way, I have a firm belief that US needs no competition, no competitor in any field. Starting with the energy, Lavrov stated. The minister went to accuse the US of encouraging actions that undermine Europe's energy stability, claiming that the American officials in headlog manner give a go-ahead to perpetrate terrorist attacks that ruin the energy well-being of the EU. The US proved their Ukrainian clients now to take out Turk Stream after their attacks on the Nord Stream, Lavrov alleged. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said on Monday that Budapest would consider any attempt to sabotage Turk Stream as undermining its national sovereignty. The pipeline is indispensable for the supply of natural gas to Hungary, Szijjártó explained, calling on everyone to respect their safety and operability of this transport route. And so, yes, Lavrov has a point, by the way. Obviously, US don't want competition, but it's not about competition. It's not about US energy companies. As I said it quite a few times before, of course, US energy companies want to make more money on Europe, right, by selling the LNG. And if Turk Stream pipeline is destroyed also, then obviously US energy companies will maybe sell little more LNG that they are doing now, but for sure on higher prices. So they will make much more money out of Europe, right? Because according to experts that I see, there is not that much capabilities left in US itself to double or triple production of their LNG, right? This fracking revolution that happened in US is reaching its limits, right? And right now, energy companies in US are struggling to maintain at least current levels of production. And it is extremely hard to increase that level, right? So therefore, with the destruction of other routes of energy supplies to Europe, US might not necessarily sell more of its own energy to the EU, but US will sell its own energy on higher prices, right? Because of the deficit on the market. That's what is happening. So there is economical interest, obviously, of energy companies of US in destruction of competitors. This is unfair competition, but what you're gonna do, man? US is under current leadership, under leadership of that they had for last quite number of decades. Actually, US is behaving as a terrorist state. We all understand that, like it or not. But that's what US does. Just nowadays they are no longer hiding it, right? I mean, who would imagine that US would target such a strategical pipeline as the Nord Stream was? I mean, who would imagine that they would do it because it is so obvious that it was US, right? They were conducting terrorist attacks here and there on a scale that they would have a plausible deniability. But Nord Stream, by the way, no, it's just too big for plausible deniability, right? But anyways, I believe main reason why Western ruling class and their main enforcer US is targeting Russian energy sector and the routes of cooperation between Russia and Europe, whatever routes are still in place. Main reason for that is that obviously Western ruling class and US wants further acceleration of the industrialization of the Europe, so that more and more manufacturers from Europe will move to US, and that will help US to reindustrialize itself. That's the main reason, by the way. That's the main reason. And profits of US energy companies and that kind of stuff, that's just secondary stuff, right? It comes with the territory. But main reason why US and Western ruling class are behaving in the way that they do is to deindustrialize Europe as fast as possible and reindustrialize US as fast as possible on expense of EU economies. and we are observing that, right? So that's what it is, and well, you share your opinion, dear friends, what you think about any topic that I discussed during this update. I hope you will find video informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button. Quite long video. It is, I mean, at least several months since I have this longer update, but hopefully you will like it. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. If you can, that might help to deal with the algorithm on both platforms, by the way, on YouTube and on Rumble too. Share information about my channel with your friends in real life or on internet, and if you like my work, if you think I deserve to be in this field of news and political commentary, you can support. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.